Welcome to Hong Kong Brief. The content of the briefing includes: China logistics market turns cold in sign of real estate gloom. China's best-performing fund strikes gold in nascent Beijing bourse for startups. Huawei teardown shows 5nm laptop chip made in Taiwan, not China. Shop till you drop, mainland bulk retailer trips a hit with young Hong Kongers. Country Garden sales in 2023 less than half previous years. China logistics market turns cold in sign of real estate gloom. Bloomberg. China's best-performing fund strikes gold in nascent Beijing bourse for startups. Bloomberg. The best-performing mutual fund in China in 2023 has seen gains in the volatile Beijing Stock Exchange. The China AMC BJSE Innovative SME Selected 2Y Regular Open Mixed Launched Fund returned 59% last year, despite broader Chinese stocks slumping due to a slowing economy and property crisis. The fund invests at least 80% of its equity assets in stocks listed on the Beijing Stock Exchange. The Beijing exchange performed well due to a policy package announced in September, which allowed firms on the bourse to transfer their listings to other exchanges and lowered trading requirements for investors. Huawei teardown shows 5nm laptop chip made in Taiwan, not China. Bloomberg. Huawei's newest laptop, the Qingyun L540, is powered by a 5nm chip made by Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, according to a teardown of the device by research firm Tech Insights. This contradicts speculation that Huawei's domestic chip-making partner, Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation, SMIC, had achieved a major leap in fabrication technique. It is unclear how Huawei managed to procure the TSMC chip, as the company has been on Washington's Entity List since 2019 and TSMC stopped taking orders from Huawei in 2020 to comply with U.S. trade restrictions. Shop till you drop, mainland bulk retailer trips a hit with young Hong Kongers. South China Morning Post. Travel tours focused on shopping in mainland Chinese cities, particularly Shenzhen, have become increasingly popular with young Hong Kong residents. Several travel agencies have launched packages catering to the growing appetite for border shopping trips, with tours including visits to popular supermarkets such as Sam's Club. The tours have seen a surge in interest since the coronavirus pandemic, with younger people keen to explore and shop for bargains, as well as purchase items only available on the mainland. The packages also include dining and entertainment options. Country Garden sales in 2023 less than half previous years. Nikkei Asia. Chinese property developer Country Garden Holdings saw its contracted sales in 2023 fall to less than half of the previous year's level, with a sharp dip in December highlighting the dire situation facing the company. Contracted sales in December were down almost 70% year-on-year. Contracted sales are the company's main source of revenue and are crucial for servicing debt. Country Garden was previously seen as being on solid financial footing until early 2023, when its cash crunch surfaced. The company's total borrowing stood at 257.9 billion Chinese yuan, $36.3 billion, as of the end of June, while it held 101.1 billion Chinese yuan in cash and cash equivalents. Fatal blast in Indonesia puts battery metal ambitions in spotlight ahead of presidential vote. Bloomberg. An explosion at a Chinese-owned facility in Indonesia has resulted in 21 deaths, leading to calls for tighter regulation of the country's battery metal processing industry. Indonesia has become a major player in the global battery material industry over the past decade, attracting substantial Chinese investment and developing processing plants for low-grade nickel ore. The sector is key to the country's plan to become an electric vehicle hub. However, the explosion at the Tsingshan Holding Group plant in Morowali has highlighted concerns over worker safety and the lack of safeguards in the industry. It has also prompted the government to call on China to improve its smelting operations. The incident is the worst in a series of accidents that have occurred as the industry has expanded rapidly. Worker safety has become a campaign issue ahead of next month's presidential election, with candidates questioning whether the price paid for investment in the industry is too high. Environmental and social concerns are also mounting, particularly over the industry's reliance on coal-fired power and the disposal of toxic waste. Can proposed district fairs in Hong Kong convince people to spend? South China Morning Post. Hong Kong's revamped district councils have proposed holding carnivals in their neighborhoods and creating Instagrammable check-in spots to help boost growth, but economists and tourism sector leaders remain skeptical over whether the ideas will be successful. The newly elected members began their term on January 1st. In addition to booths selling signature delicacies and handmade items specific to each district, the fairs would feature live performances and offer attendees incentives to spend at nearby shopping malls and stores. China automakers miss 2023 sales goal as competition intensifies. Bloomberg. Only 4 out of 13 Chinese automakers met their annual sales targets in 2023, as competition in the country's car market intensifies. Li Auto exceeded its goal of 300,000 vehicles, delivering 376,030 EVs, while BYD sold 3.01 million cars, surpassing Tesla as the world's top-selling EV maker. Geely Automobile was the only traditional automaker to meet its target. However, its EV brand Zeekr only achieved 85% of its sales goal. NIO, Xpeng, and Zhejiang Leapmotor all failed to meet their targets for a second consecutive year. The growth of China's auto market is primarily driven by new energy vehicles and exports. China's challenges come dressed in sportswear. Reuters breaking views. Chinese retailer Li Ning has been hit hard by the country's economic woes, resulting in a significant decline in its stock performance. The company, which sells athletic goods and leisure wear, was the worst-performing blue-chip stock on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in 2023, with its shares falling by 70%. This compares to a 27% drop in rival Anta Sports and a 15% decline in the benchmark Hang Seng Index. Li Ning's decline has resulted in a loss of $25 billion in market value over the past 2 years, leaving it worth less than $7 billion. The company had experienced success in 2021 due to the Guoqiao trend, which saw Chinese consumers favoring domestic brands. However, Li Ning's decision to increase prices on its goods backfired during the pandemic, as cost-conscious shoppers turned to cheaper local brands and foreign rivals like Nike. The company is now stuck between these cheaper domestic brands and Nike and Adidas, which have capitalized on the trend by offering more localized designs. Li Ning's inventory has reached its highest level since 2015, and its net income for 2023 is expected to decline by around 7%. The company's recent purchase of a $282 million office block in Hong Kong to serve as its new headquarters has also spooked shareholders amid the struggling real estate industry in China and Hong Kong. Li Ning announced a buyback of up to $385 million of its stock, but investors remain unconvinced of the company's ability to recover. How China is adapting to the U.S. reshoring its manufacturing and supply chains. South China Morning Post. Politicians in both major U.S. parties seem united in their desire to redirect manufacturing out of China, a trend that has already reshaped the global economy. The U.S. Trade Representative during the Trump administration, Robert Lighthizer, has claimed credit for imposing tariffs on China, while the Biden administration has maintained and expanded these measures. The U.S. is seeking stricter controls on China's access to high-tech components and knowledge, and is also pushing for a diversification of supply chains led by itself and its allies. The Chinese government views these efforts as forms of decoupling. The U.S. has seen a rise in manufacturing investment and the reshoring of jobs, with the reshoring initiative estimating that nearly 2 million manufacturing jobs have been brought back to the country since 2010. China has seen a fall in direct investment from the US, and Mexico has replaced it as the US's largest trading partner. Analysts are urging Beijing to open itself up wider to adapt to the changing situation. China markets are betting big on further PBOC easing this year. Bloomberg. Traders in China are increasing bets on more monetary easing this year as the country's weak economic recovery puts pressure on authorities to cut interest rates and provide liquidity. Chinese government bond yields are at their lowest in nearly 4 years, while banks are able to raise short-term debt more cheaply in money markets than from the central bank. The People's Bank of China is also softening its grip on the yuan, and major commercial lenders have reduced deposit rates, all pointing to further policy easing. Economists are calling for the PBOC to resume rate cuts. What is the point? Ask disillusioned voters ahead of polls. BBC. Bangladesh is facing a cost of living crisis, with inflation soaring and many struggling to afford basic necessities. Disillusioned voters believe that the election on December 30, which is expected to be won by the ruling Awami League, will do little to improve their lives. Sheikh Hasina, the party's leader, will be seeking a fourth term as prime minister. The election has been boycotted by the main opposition party, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, which claims that the Awami League has arrested tens of thousands of its politicians and supporters in order to paralyze its campaign. Many voters fear that a fourth term under Hasina will only exacerbate the country's economic problems. Bangladesh experienced strong economic growth in recent years, with its garment industry helping millions out of poverty. However, the economy went into turmoil in 2022, with a balance of payments crisis and an energy crisis leading to a global economic slowdown. The International Monetary Fund approved a $4.7 billion loan to help stabilize the economy. Open minds, U.S. restaurant bites into Asian stereotype of dog eating. South China Morning Post. A U.S. restaurant owner has spoken out about the racism he faced after a false accusation was made that his Thai restaurant served dog meat. David Risavong closed his restaurant in Fresno, California, due to the harassment. The false claims drew on a long-standing stereotype against Asian cultures, particularly Chinese, who were targeted after they began to arrive in the U.S. in greater numbers in the 1800s. However, Risavong's experience has also seen him receive support from his community, including offers of free services such as design and a new location. Risavong's situation is one of a number of instances in which Asian communities have faced negative reactions to their culture's foods. However, there is hope that attitudes are changing, with greater interest in Asian food and culture across traditional and new media. Fallout from Taiwan elections may heighten risk of U.S.-China missteps. South China Morning Post. The response of Beijing to a victory for pro-independence candidate William Lai Ching-te in Taiwan's presidential election could risk undermining trust between China and the United States, warns mainland academic Xiao Yuchuan. If Beijing reacts strongly to a victory for Lai's Democratic Progressive Party, the U.S. may view it as China coercing Taiwan's democratically elected leaders, leading to demands for a tougher line against China and increased support in Congress for Taiwan. Xiao also warned that other factors, such as the China-Philippines dispute in the South China Sea, are also weighing on relations between the two superpowers. Hello, my dear viewers. It's your favorite observer from the 6 Degrees World, Dr. Six, here to bring you the latest news from around the globe. Today, we have quite an interesting mix of stories, from the property market in China to the rise of district fairs in Hong Kong, and even some unfortunate incidents in Indonesia and Bangladesh. So, let's dive right in. First up, we have news about the property market in China. It seems that the logistics sector, which was once considered a safe bet, is now facing a decline in demand. Vacancy rates for high-end logistics storage have increased, indicating a slowdown in investments, exports, and consumption. This is not a good sign for China's economic growth, which heavily relies on these factors. despite efforts to stimulate the economy, weak demand and the lingering property crisis continue to put pressure on China's recovery. Next, we have an interesting story about a mutual fund in China that has struck gold in the Beijing Stock Exchange. While the broader Chinese stock market is slumping, this fund has managed to return an impressive 59% last year. This is thanks to a policy package announced in September that allowed firms on the Beijing exchange to transfer their listings to other exchanges. It just goes to show that sometimes, it pays to think outside the box and take advantage of unique opportunities. In another surprising twist, a teardown of Huawei's newest laptop has revealed that it is powered by a 5-nanometer chip made by Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company, TSMC, not Huawei's domestic chip-making partner. This is quite a contradiction to earlier speculations. It's unclear how Huawei managed to procure the TSMC chip, given the company's restrictions due to U.S. trade restrictions. But hey, where there's a will, there's a way, right? Now, let's talk about something a bit more lighthearted. It seems that travel tours focused on shopping in mainland Chinese cities have become increasingly popular with young Hong Kong residents. These tours offer a chance to explore, shop for bargains, and purchase items that are only available on the mainland. It's a great way to satisfy the shopaholic in all of us while also experiencing a new culture. Plus, who can resist the allure of a good bargain? Moving on, we have some concerning news about Chinese property developer Country Garden Holdings. The company saw its sales in 2023 fall to less than half of the previous year's level, with a sharp dip in December. This is a dire situation for the company, as contracted sales are its main source of revenue. It's a clear indication of the struggles facing the property market in China, and it's definitely not a good sign for Country Garden's financial health. In Indonesia, an explosion at a Chinese-owned facility has resulted in calls for tighter regulation of the country's battery metal processing industry. Indonesia has become a major player in the global battery material industry, attracting substantial Chinese investment. However, concerns over worker safety and the lack of safeguards in the industry have been highlighted by this incident. It's a reminder that with rapid industrialization comes the need for proper regulations and safety measures. Now, let's talk about some interesting developments in Hong Kong. The revamped district councils have proposed holding carnivals in their neighborhoods and creating check-in spots to help boost growth. While the ideas sound fun and exciting, economists and tourism sector leaders remain skeptical about their success. Only time will tell if these initiatives will have the desired effect and encourage people to spend. In the world of automobiles, it seems that Chinese automakers are facing increased competition in their home market. Only 4 out of 13 Chinese automakers met their annual sales targets in 2023. This is a clear indication of the intensifying competition in China's car market. However, there are some success stories, with Li Auto and BYD exceeding their sales goals. The growth of China's auto market is primarily driven by new energy vehicles and exports, which shows the changing landscape of the industry. Now, let's take a moment to talk about Li Ning, the Chinese retailer that has been hit hard by the country's economic woes. The company, which sells athletic goods and leisure wear, has seen its stock performance decline significantly. It was the worst-performing blue-chip stock in Hong Kong in 2023. Li Ning's decline can be attributed to various factors, including the increase in prices on its goods during the pandemic and competition from cheaper domestic brands and foreign rivals like Nike. It's a tough situation for the company, and it remains to be seen if it can recover from this setback. In the global markets, we are seeing a break in the winning streak. World stock indices are set to fall, with the MSCI World Index on track to snap a 9-week winning streak. This is due to a repricing by the U.S. Federal Reserve, which has caused some volatility in the markets. The dollar index is up, and the 10-year Treasury yield is hovering just below the key 4% mark. It's a reminder that the markets can be unpredictable, and it's important to stay informed and adapt to changing circumstances. Lastly, let's talk about the US-China relationship and how it's impacting manufacturing and supply chains. The US has been redirecting manufacturing out of China, which has reshaped the global economy. The Chinese government views these efforts as forms of decoupling, while the US sees it as a way to gain stricter controls and diversify supply chains. China has seen a fall in direct investment from the US, while the US has experienced a rise in manufacturing investment and the reshoring of jobs. The situation is still evolving, and it will be interesting to see how China adapts to these changes. That's all for today's news, my dear viewers. I hope you found these stories as fascinating as I did. Now, it's time for you to share your thoughts and questions. What do you make of these developments? Do you have any insights or opinions to share? I'm all ears. Remember, in the 6 degrees world, your voice matters. So, don't be shy and let's start a lively discussion. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.